This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not.
Welcome to the Warner Brothas podcast, coming at you live and direct. Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan in person.
Yep.
Technically, I'm joining him, actually. Joined, as always, by Timmy Gray. Timmy G, what's up, boy?
This is the first time I've seen you guys in person, and I'm on the pod.
That's crazy.
Yeah, normally you guys do these in shows, and I never make it on, but here we are. So
He doesn't make the cut.
yeah,
Reppin' C4 energy.
as usual.
Love it.
We
Are
gotta
you
get a,
sponsored
we gotta
by-
get a. Yeah, we're all sponsored. The Warner Brothers podcast, sponsored by C4.
We're sponsored by, I was going to say, sponsored by C4. There we go. So I can see that. Oh. There we go. I want to see everything. All right, so just like we did last time for the week 12, technically. Week 11 review of the NFL, and then now it's a week 12 review. We're going to go with the star kind of format, which if you hadn't seen the last one, go see the last one. But if you hadn't, each point of a star, of course, 5 points to a star, and then we have our big overall takeaway. We go through the wow and the WTF moments. We have the Madden manager basically recreate or trade whatever you would do to a different team. Let me cook. ISO, you talk about what you want to talk about for that time being. Game of the week, what we thought was the game of the week and why we had that as the game of the week. Then Galaxy View, where we talk about another sport, whatever we want to talk about throughout that different time, because obviously the NFL is not the only thing going on. And then last but not least, the star-studded moment of the week. And so last time we started with the moment, I believe.
We did.
This time let's actually start game of the week. Timmy, what was your game of the week this week?
So I thought there were like 3 games that could have been game of the week here, but I will give my game of the week to specifically the fourth quarter of the Cowboys versus Commanders game. First 3 quarters was boring as hell, but then that fourth quarter, we had big play. We had, the crazy onside kick. We had a missed PAT that would have tied the game. It was just chaotic.
Madness.
And there was never a point until the clock struck 0 that I was like, the Commanders are definitely out of this game. I was always like, there's something's going to happen. And then it just kept happening. So I had a lot of fun watching that fourth quarter, specifically just the fourth quarter of that game.
Even with the even when they obviously returned the onside kick for a touchdown, it was still like, okay, now it's an 8-point game. The Commanders still have a chance to make like 2 plays to get down the field. Obviously, we saw them go down in 1.
Yeah, it was like they literally just went down in 1 play. They can do it again. I didn't understand why he even returned it for the touchdown. Just take a knee, or like go down, and then give your offense the ball, and they run out the game, and the game's done right there. But instead, he takes it back, gives them another shot. It just didn't make a lot of sense.
That was actually my favorite play, was the returned onside kick out of all the madness that happened in those 2 minutes. You'd never see an onside kick return for a touchdown. Felt like that was poetic, given how that game was going. Obviously, I don't want to call it a Hail Mary, but like the catch and run by McLaren, obviously that was great. That was, had they completed all that with the extra point, that would have just added to this miracle season that they're having, Hail Mary included. But yeah, the onside kick return, every time there's an onside kick, I'm like, man, I want someone to take this back to the house. Like, we never see that. So I'm glad we finally got one. Again, fitting that it was in that chaotic ass game, chaotic ass 2 minute. So love it.
Timmy, speaking of onside kick return, do you remember my senior year, which would have been your sophomore year of high school, Eric Scott?
Against Spalding. Yep. We're up like 40-0 in that game, and then they onside kicked it for whatever reason. He takes it right to the crib, and we're like, all right.
Yeah, no, it was that game. We were doing whatever we wanted to in that game. I actually ran for a touchdown in that game. Connor Hogan, I think, had like a couple receiving touchdowns. Hunter Stanley was doing whatever he wanted to. Defense was getting after it. It was one of the few games all year we decided to get after it. And then Eric Scott, to add insult to injury, takes one back to the house.
The special teamer. He never played offense. He never played defense. He was a special teams player, and he got his moment.
He was a practice squad special team player and had more touchdowns than coach's son. Fair enough.
For
Shout
real.
out Shout out Joey Wade.
2 first names. Shouts to Joey Wade for sure.
Shout out Joey Wade. He wants to come on the pod at some point. We'll have to have him on at some point. Kyle, what is your game of the week?
My game of the week involves a team that I had in my game of the week from week 11, and that is the Steelers and Browns.
Ooh.
I know I was on here being an AFC North groupie last weekend. Even before the season, I was kind of being an AFC North groupie. Again, I'll repeat what I said. Give me AFC North just on Sunday ticket. I don't need any other teams. Just give me those 4 in their schedules. I'm Gucci. And listen, this game had the snow. It had hard hitting. It had Jameis. We got a Jameis post-game speech. We got a Jameis snow angel at the end of the game. We got.
When does he become a pastor?
We got to always. Jameis, my brother. Jameis, my brother's keeper. Winston. That's him. Especially after his Deshaun Winston. What am I talking about? Deshaun Watson speech after his start initially, or when he came in relief for Deshaun. But yeah, man, check out Jameis's mic'd up from week 12 as well from that game. That's very entertaining. But between the snow, the blizzard, the hard hitting, Steelers who came back into that game, like they were down at one point in that game, and the Browns just kept it together. It was everything I want out of the AFC North. Wasn't like Commanders and Cowboys where it was just lunacy at the end. Like that was definitely the most entertaining stretch of football we got this weekend, probably. But that game was everything I want from a November, December, January game. You know, divisional rivals. I complained the week before about divisional games on Thursday, but they've been delivering lately. I can't complain. You got Cincinnati and the Ravens
The
doing
AFC
their
North
thing the week before.
lately.
And it was both AFC North. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I got to shut my mouth when it comes to these Thursday divisional games because they've more than delivered. And of course, like Keenan said, it was the AFC North. So,
well, let's hope that the AFC North delivers or NFC North rather delivers tomorrow for another divisional matchup on Thursday. Obviously, Thanksgiving's a little different, but so that game we actually predicted like all of us right. So like and pretty much to the same score. Kyle had 22-17, I had 22-18, Timmy had 20-16. We all had the Browns. All the same reasons, and it all happened pretty much the way we thought it was going to. For me, my game of the week, in a little bit different, like kind of context than the other like you guys had for game of the week. Mine actually was the Eagles and the Rams, and the reason why mine was watching Saquon Barkley, reminding everybody of how talented he is and continuing to as he has all season. I came out of that game thinking to myself for the first time that the Eagles could truly go to the Super Bowl. It was the first, they started the year off and it was kind of up and down. I was like, they still could possibly miss the play. Obviously, it's early in the season. We don't know. Then they're continuing to get better and better. Hurts is playing a lot better football than he did starting. And it was getting to that point where it was like, oh, this team could definitely go on a run in the playoffs. I don't know if they could get to the Super Bowl. This is the first week coming out of it that I thought that they truly could get to the Super Bowl, and it's because they're one of the only teams in the NFC and really in the NFL that can match the Lions' physicality. Like on the offensive line, they can match it. Defensive line, the way they play, even the receivers, A.J. Brown's physical. Devontae's more finesse, but even then he can still take some hard hits. And obviously Saquon Barkley is the great mix of physical plus speed, so that was my game of the week just because of the takeaways I had from Philadelphia in that game.
what you got, Tim?
I don't know which topic we're going to next. Somebody direct me.
You got a response to the Eagles Rams?
Oh, response to that. I actually just had a phone call with Camden Dennis speaking about
Shout
football.
out Cam.
Shout out to Camden. I said exactly what you just said. I was like, man, if you asked me 2 weeks ago who I thought was winning the Super Bowl, I'd say, definitely the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. Right now, I don't know, man. I think the Eagles can compete with them. And I think an Eagles-Lions NFC championship is going to be an amazing game if we get to see it. So I totally agree with what you just said, man. Everything you just said, spot on.
It's funny because I believed him when we recorded last week. I said that we're headed for possibly an Eagles-Lions NFC Championship game, but it feels like something is missing from the Eagles that was there in their initial Super Bowl trip. I don't know what it is because they're explosive. There's something about this team that I do trust. I trust it probably against 99% of the NFL. I don't know how I feel about them against the Lions. I'm like week by week assessing it.
Mm-hmm.
I did come out of that game wondering, okay, if that matchup were to happen in Detroit, I would feed Saquon the ball, no joke, 35 to 40 times. Like I would just gear him up because the Eagles are at least fundamentally sound. This is why I've always been big on the Eagles, at least in the Sirianni era. They are big on ball control. They are big on getting it to 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2, and then, brotherly shove, give it to Saquon, just making everything manageable for them. They got it back to where Hurts is a game manager. I think that's where he's best served. So if they can just go on a run here, obviously they've only got 2 losses, but if they can continue this, take care of their divisional games and just keep that defense improving, which it is under Vic Fangio. They're going to be tough to beat, especially when you almost got to take the Niners out of it. There's no one else you can really trust in the NFC, honest to God. We'll see more with the Packers. That'll be the team that I'll really look at to make a run down the stretch here. Because, man, after the Eagles, it's wide open. You want a third team to be able to really shake it up and make some noise. I don't know who that team is right now. So the Eagles are almost in the NFC Championship game by default. I can't see them beating themselves.
It would be the Vikings if there was going to be a team, to be quite honest.
Sure.
Because they check every box except
Vikings
for
are as
quarterback.
live as
and
anybody.
then it's with quarterback. I mean, the Vikings are still alive for like the 1 seed. Like they're only a game back, and obviously if the Lions were to cough up one, they do play the Lions the last week of the season. That could really be for the 1 seed. That could be for the division, or it could be the Lions have it, or even the Vikings have it tucked away. If the Lions, they have a tough schedule coming up, so that's going to be a fun game. The Vikings would be the 3rd team. It's just we all probably have a little bit of a problem thinking Sam Darnold can go win a Super Bowl. Like that's like the idea of it for me, where it's like, okay, the offense is there, the defense is there, the missing Darashaw is going to be tough, but they have all the pieces. It's just Sam Darnold, NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. Don't know if you could see it, but again, I couldn't see Nick Foles doing it either, and he outplayed.
NFC Championship, I could see. Super Bowl, obviously, that'd be a
NFC Championship different.
But we've seen
you're right.
Weirder, if not as weird, quarterbacks in the NFC Championship game as Darnold under the Vikings too. At that last time they played the Eagles.
Yeah, we saw Case Keenum in the so you're right. You're absolutely right on that. So that was game of the week. Kyle, do you have one you want to go to? Anything?
Let's see what we got.
I wasn't sure if you want to go with the moment manager. I don't, like my manager this week also, guys. Not as in depth.
Let's
as in depth.
Let's go off that because my wow moment was obviously none other than Saquon Barkley. That was an incredible performance, and he, like Keenan's been saying, he is when he's healthy, he is in the top 5 most exciting players. He can just break it open. Give him a swing pass, give him a screen pass. He's just a game breaker, truly. He really is. So that was an incredible performance. Eagles ran it up on him. And again, they just seem to have unlocked something. And if he can stay healthy, I almost, in these games that, if it's not a divisional game or it's not a like they got the Ravens coming up, if it's not a game like that, I'm almost like just babying Saquon just to keep him healthy because he really does have a poor injury history, unfortunately. But man, yeah, I would. Unless it's like this game coming up with the Ravens, a divisional game, unless it's a primetime game like that, keep it at 20 to 25 touches, right? And, keep them maybe on the outskirts, not between the tackles. But when it's playoff time, that's all I was thinking. Like, I was thinking Sunday, when it's playoff time, just feed him the rock. Like, just give him the ball as much as he can because he can handle it. And he's just liable to give you an 80-yard touchdown or something. So very excited to see what the hell he does for the rest of the season. He's on pace to break the rushing record. So very interesting developments for sure.
Timmy, your thoughts?
On the Saquon thing, it was great to see him break the 70-yard touchdown to start the second half. And then he did it again, like later in the game. So it's crazy to watch. Like you can't even say, moment. It was the whole game. He was just dominating. And he's done this time and time again and again. it's funnier week by week to watch the Giants just struggle without having any sort of talent on their roster right now. Meanwhile, they didn't think that they should pay potentially the best running back in the league money, which is crazy. So.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy to think. I mean, Tyrone Tracy's actually been like their bright spot, and so like at running back, like they're not like. I mean, obviously the difference between Saquon and Tyrone Tracy is a gap, but if there's one thing on the Giants right now that you're not complaining about, it actually is the running game. They're running the ball pretty well. Out of the few things that they're doing well, Saquon. I definitely agree with you. Obviously, I talked about it there in my game of the week. One thing I do want to mention about the Eagles real quick. I think the only thing that could hurt them is if they start games the way they've been typically starting games. They don't really score much in the first half. Like Saquon, I think it was like 4 yards a carry in the first half and like 7.5 in the second half, and that's only gone up. We got from last game. Going into it was that Chris Collinsworth had said on the cast. They don't start hot, and if you're against a Lions team that does start hot, and you do get up to like a 21 to like 10 kind of game, going into halftime, you might not be able to utilize Saquon to the level you want to. That's the only thing with the Eagles that concerns me a touch. But again, Saquon Barkley to Kyle's moment, he was a moment the entire game. 255 is insane on the ground at 300 total, I believe, with stuff in the air. So
that actually doesn't bother me with their team starting off slow. The Steelers are very much the same in that regard, and they're less talented. The Eagles with their talent, 21-10 hypothetically, that would not bother me with the likes of A.J. Brown, Saquon, obviously, Hurts in the running game at least.
They can pull themselves out of the hole. I'm just a little scared because the Lions can just salt the game away. Because obviously they may not have Saquon, but together they have Saquon. And Jimmy Gibbs and Montgomery.
Could, for sure. And, the Lions, they're explosive. I think, hypothetically, the Eagles, I mean, they're the antithesis of the Lions in the sense that they could do the whole ball control thing.
Yeah.
Like they would have, that's famously how you limit an explosive team is run the ball, bleed the clock, try to have 8-minute drives basically, which is where the Eagles want to live anyway. Thing is, they can be just as explosive, close to as explosive. That was a big statement right there. Close to as explosive as the Lions when they want to be, right? They can just at least create big plays. So I'm very intrigued by that matchup. I actually hope we do get that for the NFC Championship game. Styles make fights, so.
Same. I hope so too. Timmy, if you have anything to comment on that, go. And if not, give your moment.
I don't. So my moment, this moment actually made me stand up. I was watching the game. As a Jaden Daniels manager, the 70-yard touchdown to McLaurin down the sideline got me so hyped. It gave me hope that I could win my fantasy matchup. My whole team was on bye, so it was a false hope. It really shouldn't have given me any hope, but it was both my wow moment and my WTF moment because 30 seconds later they missed a point after attempt to tie the damn game. So that's what I got.
See, I'm an owner of Jaden Daniels in another league, so that made me just as excited. Also, I don't know if we're going to talk about this team, so I got to say this real quick while we're on the fantasy thought. Thank you to Kyler Murray for being terrible. Because Kyler Murray being terrible pretty much won me my work league for the week, and then now I'm actually able to make moves and hopefully get into the playoffs. So thank you to Kyler Murray for that. But so bouncing right off of Timmy, my moment was the Cowboys Commanders fourth quarter. Like the whole thing, like the entire thing because at this point, I'm not even really watching the game live because I got coolly scheduled on a Sunday and then people happen to not like want to go see God or go watch football. They happen to come into Dick's Sporting Goods. They thought that was the place to be at 2:30 to 4 o'clock on a Sunday. So I didn't get to watch much of the game, but I watched highlights and kind of rewatched stuff. But as I'm looking, I'm like, oh, the Commanders are down 10 to the Cowboys. Oh, what happened? Oh, there's a 70-yard touchdown from McLaurin. They missed the extra point. They returned an onside kick for a touchdown. Just like all of it together was like everything that you could want in a football game chaotically happened in that fourth quarter. big plays, big turnover, big just what's going on moments. So that felt like a playoff game in the fourth quarter. Like that felt like how the Cowboys would lose a playoff game. Like if the onside kick would have happened on the other side, I could see the Cowboys losing on an onside kick return touchdown. Like that just feels so Cowboys. But that whole entire fourth quarter, as Timmy said, but the game was just my moment. Both sides.
Yeah, I would add that to my what the fuck moment. We'll segue to that. I mean, like you said, it was lunacy. I would also add to my what the fuck moment would be the blizzard that happened in the Browns-Steelers game.
Oh, yeah. It came out of nowhere.
Beginning of the third quarter. I mean, it was crazy because we heard it was going to be a terrible weather game. And, even an hour leading up to the game, I'm looking up what's going to happen in Cleveland, Ohio. And it says like a bad storm's coming, this and that. I actually saw someone posted they were at the game and it was clear. And I'm like, damn, it's kind of worried because I think I took the under in that game. I can't remember exactly, but I would have definitely took the under. And then shouts at Jadams. He's calling me, wondering if he should take the over or the under. We're scheming it up. And I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to be bad, but, let's go with it. It looks like it's supposed to be bad. Then I see someone post again, looks clear out. I'm like, maybe it's just very windy. Then the first and second quarter, it does seem to be windy, but there's not much snow. And it's still trending towards the under. And then you got more scoring. And then third quarter, by the end of it, is a typical blizzard. So
as we all know well, living in the north,
I was gonna say that was a typical northeast blizzard.
That was a nor'easter.
Yeah, right.
That was a nor'easter
for sure. But yeah, no, that was my what the fuck moment between. Again, you can't even say the fourth quarter. The last 2 minutes really of Cowboys Commanders, and then the weather that happened in Steelers Browns. So.
I was going to say, Timmy, we had a one-hit wonder for both of ours, me and Timmy, because it was the same thing. It was all like, wow, what's going on? What is this? So with that, I'm going to segue right into Madden Manager for me. Last week, I had an elaborate plan with trading Stafford, Cooper Kupp to Titans, Chargers, multiple picks flying everywhere. This week, just one guy's getting traded. And obviously, this team could still make the playoffs hypothetically. Obviously, it just depends on how their schedule goes. They're not in a great position right now. But I still think regardless if they make the playoffs or not, this is a move that they should look to do. And it's the Dolphins trading Tyreek Hill. Reason being is he's starting to get a little older. He's getting to the point where he still has massive trade value and he has massive potential to help out a team who is in that contending category. I know the Dolphins are, but they also don't have a lot of money, and they need more pieces around it. So kind of in the way the Chiefs had to, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. Obviously they had Kelsey. I mean, they won a Super Bowl before, but they ended up getting Trent McDuffie from that pick, and they also freed up some money. Obviously Tyreek Hill went on to do really good things in Miami, but I think at this point, Jalen Waddle's still there. Obviously Jonnu Smith has become a true tight end target. They could get somebody else. Receiver-wise, there are multiple people in the draft. This is a very heavy wide receiver draft. I think you could trade off a Tyreek Hill. You could get a first, have 2 firsts, and maybe even something next year possibly, and then work from there. I think that would be good for them just because I think they need the assets rather than just having Tyreek Hill.
I don't mind that necessarily. It's hard to say because he is such a game breaker, and he's obviously improved since Tua's gotten back. He hasn't necessarily taken off the way you would like. I think I've made this comparison before. Him and Waddle very much remind me of Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin when they were on the Eagles. Yeah. 2 speed receivers on the outside. I'm not sure if you can trust Waddle health-wise. Yeah. Tyreek low-key gets hurt a lot, but he kind of plays it out. Like he'll take himself out of games here and there. I'm not sure if I could get all the way there. The thinking is correct, though. Like, he is inching towards aging in wide receiver years. He is very boom or bust as far as being explosive. As far as, like, when it does go, it's going to be bad. Like, it's going to be terrible. Like, it's going to be pretty awkward to watch Tyreek Hill when he does lose his speed, because what's he going to offer, at his size? I would be wary of it, though, because, I mean, he kind of is staying fresh because of, having, who was it? I almost said Tyrod. Who the fuck was it? Old backup for the Snoop Huntley.
Yeah.
Tyron Huntley. he is a little fresh from those 4 or 5 games. So maybe he does make a big explosion here. I mean, they're gonna need it tomorrow against Green Bay. Let's be real.
Mhm.
So I get the thinking. I could see like if he doesn't really pop off here down the stretch. Let's say the Dolphins continue to win or continue to compete, and Tyreek doesn't look like the Tyreek we're used to. I could get on board with that.
It's just more
He
the
still
year
does.
too early, late thing, and then
Sure,
also you have Devon Achane, who is really their number one option right now. He has turned into that because of the way he can receive, plus he can run. Really, with him too, it's health.
He's basically Tyreek. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? He's basically Tyreek. Obviously not as fast. Tyreek's just a one-of-one when it comes to speed.
Absolutely.
But you're right with that. He is one. I've never really thought of this until you mentioned it.
Mhm.
He is one that's going to be very interesting as he ages. Whereas Justin Jefferson's still young, but when he does lose a step, he can kind of become what Larry Fitzgerald did. He's got the size, he's got the hands.
He's such a good route runner. So.
Yeah, he can play in the slot. Tyreek is going to be very interesting as he ages. Now, Deshaun Jackson, he was able even late in his career to still be a burner, still be a deep threat for these teams. So maybe Tyreek's able to do that.
I like the thinking. I agree. That if they can get any value for him, it would be great. The problem is, I don't think he has that value anymore. I don't.
What do you think his value is in a trade, hypothetically?
To be honest with you, I think a team trying to trade for Tyreek isn't going to be. I don't think they're going to be willing to give up a first. I think it's going to be, maybe a second and a third or something like that. A couple day 2 picks. He's got a huge contract that they got to take on. And if you had told me last year that they capitalized and they traded him and they got this big haul for him, and then this year was the decline, I would believe you. Like, if you go look at his stats right now, since Tua came back, he hasn't had a game over 100 yards, I don't believe. He's definitely not the Tyreek that he was last year, the potential offensive player of the year Tyreek. But he has been dealing with the wrist injury, so maybe that's what it is. But he's had a tough stretch, and without Tua, he had a really tough stretch. So I honestly definitely don't think he's worth 2 firsts. I don't think a team is willing to give a first just because I believe he's 30 years old. So if he's going to decline, it's right now. And I think we've already started to see the decline for Tyreek.
His stats are pretty average. I wouldn't say pedestrian, but average. The yardage is still kind of there, but I do want to see it the next few weeks here. Again, especially this game. Like, it seems like if now then never with this Green Bay game. I'm not sure what the weather's supposed to be, but yeah, you really do got to get him going. It does seem like he's still got the explosion. All right, maybe even if it's a half step less than before, you're still better than still 100% of the league probably still.
It's kind of the LeBron factor. Like when LeBron was so far and away the most athletic player that like he right now is like one of the top 20 most athletic players in the league. Like he still gets up on dunks. I mean, like obviously he doesn't slide the way he used to, but like LeBron going from how he was to how he was, it's still very, very athletic as an athlete. Timmy, quick question. Do you hear us the exact same as you did prior? Do we sound
pretty much. I don't think you sound any different now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because like we kind of touched that, and then I wasn't sure if it kind of switched what our settings were on it. Yeah.
No, I saw you messing with things. I wasn't sure if something got like unplugged or something, but it all sounds the same. Good volume.
Yeah, no, something did get, and it's now going to the MacBook Pro microphone comparatively to the other one, which is being stupid. So, hold on. Okay. So, oh man, that's gonna upset me and annoy me. But it won't let me switch it. So this is gonna sound different, but it should be fine. I'll just edit it after and make sure it sounds fine. Okay, we'll make it sound fine. So Timmy, next with you, what is your moment? Or Madden manager, rather. Sorry.
My Madden manager. I'm actually going to focus on a team this week. We kind of talked about this before the pod started. My Madden manager, head coach of the Detroit Lions, I think this game plan should be to run the ball as many times as possible and take a lot of the weight off of Jared Goff's shoulders in this game. We've seen Jared Goff since he became a Lion. He's played on Thanksgiving every year. He still hasn't won a game. They've been upset. Last year they got upset, I believe, by the Bears or maybe
Packers.
it was the Packers.
Because that was really the Packers like coming out party was that game.
Yeah, that's where they started to become a playoff contender team.
Yep.
I think the matchup is great for them. Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, if Montgomery's healthy, and I think if he thinks he's healthy to play, he's going to play and he's going to be at pretty much 100%. I think they could rush for 250 to 300 yards on this team if they really wanted to. And if they do that, they don't need to put a lot on Jared Goff. And I think it makes
250 on the Bears?
On the Bears, yes. The Bears are the team that you can run on. You can't really pass on the Bears. They got a good pass defense, but you can run on the Bears for sure. And if you're a team like between the two of them, yes, 100%. They could both go for 100. Easy.
Right. Ooh, easy. Okay, Tim.
Easy. I'm calling it right now. No. So that's my Madden manager is just let's run the ball 45, 50 times this week and just try to rack it up on the ground. Let's let Jared throw it 20 times. If they could have him have 20 attempts and they win this game by 2 scores, that's best case scenario for them this week.
I don't know about 250 to 300 on the ground. I do think Gibbs has a big game. We'll probably, actually, since we're not going to have our full picks, I'm going to quickly say it now. We might talk about it later. Three.
Save it. So we're doing the 3 things.
You want to do?
Yeah,
fine.
we'll have that whole section.
All right, so the Lions are going to be involved within a bet that I think is a very good bet later on. I'm placing the 3-leg parlay on multiple platforms. All right, Kyle, do you have your moment or do you want to respond to Timmy or both?
I kind of responded to Tim already.
Okay.
I think that's a bullish take.
Wow.
That's a bold take, I should say, not bullish take, bold take. My Madden manager was originally boring. It was very boring. It was just going to be to bench Will Levis, at least in that Texans game that they ended up winning. He just had so many mistakes, whether it was taking sacks when you shouldn't, a pick 6 at the end of the third quarter where he just stared down where he was throwing. Just the whole Will Levis experience, really.
It's also one of the worst losses in the league for a contending team.
If you consider the Texans a contending team,
they're going to be a playoff team. They should probably win about 10 plus games. So I'll say a playoff contending team. That's what I'll say. That's even up there with obviously the Ravens lost to the Raiders and losses like that. That's just terrible. You almost return a kick return for a touchdown to start off the game. You have that. You have, as you just said, you have defensive touch. You can't lose that game. You just can't lose that game, especially if you are the team that we thought. I mean, more so me than you guys, but that a lot of people thought you were going to be going into the year. You can't lose that one.
Yeah, I mean, I actually picked the Texans to lose that game. I truly believe the Texans were in damn near almost any division in the NFL. They're probably not a playoff team. It's funny, Tim. We were talking about Colts Lions. Between what happened in the Cowboys-Commanders game and the Texans and Titans, that's more so the game I thought we were going to get out of Lions-Colts. Instead, we got a pretty boring game from the Lions and Colts, actually. That's exactly what I would have thought of the Texans and Titans beforehand.
It was a little bit impressive. It was a good win for the Lions. Because a lot of people were on that game taking the Colts spread-wise and all that good stuff because of the fact of the way the Colts had been playing, the way they could run the football, and the Lions held them to 6. That was a more thing. We know the Lions can put up points. That's not the worry. Their defense actually has allowing less points per game. Schedule kind of dependent too, but since Aiden Hutchinson's been out, they actually allow less points than when he was there. So they're still playing at a very high level, and that was an impressive win to beat the Colts and hold them to only 6 points.
For sure, and I got more Lions content coming later. But aside from Will Levis, Tim, you actually kind of inspired me. My other half of my Madden manager moment will be for the Dolphins. Let's give us a little Raheem Mostert tomorrow. All right, he's been quiet. He's been in the doghouse all year. Maybe he's just completely washed. But tomorrow is the type of game. in Green Bay. I'm assuming it's going to be cold. Maybe not super cold. Maybe nothing crazy like last Thursday, but it should be a colder game. You're going to need a run game. Achan's more than up to the task, but maybe a little more Mozart who can bang, who can create some yardage, who can just kind of just weigh on that defense, give you some body blows.
Let Mozart be Mozart.
Yeah, exactly. Let Mozart be Mozart. It's a little bit of that. Maybe that can put you over the edge. That, I mean, as we talked about last week, Tim, that game intrigues me more than any game, even on Sunday slate. More than any game this week, Green Bay, Miami intrigues me. So very excited for that game. So maybe a little more Raheem Mozart. Maybe that could be the difference. Maybe that could give them a better chance because we know how Tua and just warm weather teams in general, traveling to a cold weather city, how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that could be good. I mean, we've seen Raheem Mostert put up 200 against the Packers before. Obviously, that was against with the 49ers, but we actually hosted Austin that day. Packers fan, Packers fan extraordinaire. We hosted Austin as Raheem Mostert's running wild on that roster, and he was not too happy. not too happy. Timmy, next, what do you want to talk? Which one do you want to go with? The Galaxy View, Let Me Cook, and then obviously our star-studded moment, which we could say best for last, but up to you.
We can do the Galaxy View. I didn't really have much to talk about, just because I don't really watch basketball. And that's kind of the sport that's going on a lot right here, and one that I'm assuming one of you guys will probably talk about. But I have seen some highlights, some clips from basketball, specifically Lamelo Ball playing, and I just gotta say, he just looks like he's having fun, man. He doesn't even look like he's trying to win basketball games. He's just like, I'm gonna do some Chino Hills stuff. I'm gonna pull up from the logo whenever I feel like it. I'm gonna cross some dudes up. I'm gonna drop some people, So I just gotta say, Lamelo looks like he's having a lot of fun. He's putting up a real highlight film here. So
I want him in winning situations, but at the same time, Charlotte just fits him so well as like his personality. Like I would love to have LaMelo in a winning situation to where he could play meaningful games, because like he had a 50 and 10, then got a 44 point game after that. Like LaMelo's having himself a fine year, but also he likes to foul a lot, doesn't play a whole lot of defense.
Not only that, but 2 games before that, he got benched by his coach in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And he's had a history of that in his career by getting benched in the fourth quarter from coaches. So you're completely right. Like he's definitely in the upper echelon of like most fun players to watch right now, especially
ball in the family.
He's right. He's got a ton of talent. It's yet to be seen if he's actually a winning player or not, but he's certainly someone you want to watch night to night.
Oh yeah, anyone who can go get 50 on a whim, or at least 40 on a whim, he's someone you want to watch regardless. Kyle, how about you? What's your Galaxy View of the week?
So my Galaxy View actually has to do with the Galaxy View I had from last week with All-Star Weekend, with the change to the All-Star game, with it becoming a tournament. I had said prior, how we had predicted it, how excited I was. I'm assuming it was going to be similar to the in-season tournament where we get NBA teams, when actually it's taking on the Rising Stars format. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I personally, Keenan, I'm not sure if it'll actually help the All-Star game. I'm not sure if it will actually cause these players to actually give a shit. I'm not sure it'll actually cause these players to try. I'm just not sure. And the fact that one of the teams, this is the only saving grace for me possibly, is one of the teams being the Rising Stars. Cool. All right. That maybe can add some incentive because they're obviously going to try their ass off. They're going to be under the bright lights in front of all the stars. I'm not sure who really wants to watch that. I'm not sure if you would have asked 100 NBA fans. Go ahead.
So there's four teams of 6, I'm assuming, right?
4 teams. Yeah, I think it is 6 players, or
it has to be 8.
Or 8 players.
That the math there now makes sense because you have 24 All-Stars and then you have the 4th team. Okay, so that does make sense. Also, it's going to be interesting to see like who is choosing what, because obviously it was all right, the West leader and then the East leader for votes are going to choose your team, and then they're kind of like whatever it is. So like it's going to be interesting. Now are we doing 3, just the top 3 people, or whatever they're doing? But we'll see. I don't think it fixes things though.
It's interesting. Like, I was gonna say, I don't know if you pulled 100 NBA fans, if they would have chose this exact format involving the Rising Stars winner. It's just a weird format. Again, I'm not sure if it's gonna save the All-Star game. I was gonna say immediately after I wrote this down, I went on Instagram, and I forget who had posted it or what account had posted it, but it was saying how, and I don't even know if I can really get behind this because it's always been traditionally how the All-Star weekend works. People were saying how celebrities are maybe treated better than maybe a player's parents, an All-Star's parents. Like they get better tickets and preferential treatment. Mm-hmm. But All-Star weekend's kind of the NBA Super Bowl as far as like it's a corporate event. It caters to the celebrities. It's always been that way since I was a kid, where you're going to have your biggest celebrities front row. So I think that's a pretty sad excuse, honestly, to why the players don't play hard. I mean, it's just been the last 10 years gradually getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I don't know, man. I went from encouraged, thinking it was going to be 4 actual NBA teams, to now discouraged. And it is what it is. We'll get to see it. Maybe it will save the All-Star game. Shit, we thought the whole Elan ending, we thought that was going to be a great addition, because honestly, the first time we got it, it was all-time great.
It was great.
And then it never matched up. So, I don't know. It very well still could end with 2 years from now, us not having any All-Star game. But, hey, we gave you the fix here. We gave you the fix. Warner Brothas Podcast gave you the fix. Give us another tournament, much like the in-season tournament. Build your season around those in-season tournaments. And then your stretch run is just building for the postseason.
The All-Star game, the people just don't feel the same about it, obviously, as they used to be. Because obviously you hear about the 80s and 90s, but 2010, 2012, All-Star game was fine.
All the way up until mid-2010s.
Until Steph won unanimous MVP. 16 and then 17 ended up like that was just the start of it, because that was the start of threes really being like pivotal. And then, like, obviously threes were always pivotal, but like that kind of changed that. And then now it's just a 3-point shooting contest glorified. Changes aren't going to help anything. Adam, if again, come see us, sit down, buy us dinner. We don't have the money you do, and we'll talk with you. And it'll be okay. But so my galaxy view is basketball and the women's basketball aficionado. Women's basketball aficionado, as I am always here. It's might be my galaxy view every week if someone needs to talk about it. And it was USC versus Notre Dame.
This isn't where you're okay. Keep going.
USC versus Notre Dame played last week, and obviously there's Juju Watkins, there's Kiki Iriafen, however they pronounce the name. I thought it was Iriafen, but she transferred from Stanford. Cameron Brink's no longer there. She transferred there. They're building a super team over here. And then there's this Notre Dame team that I've been a very big fan of. Olivia Miles, she's coming back, going to be a top 3 NBA pick here this coming year. She's a great point guard. And then there's this girl named Hannah Hidalgo, happened to make all NCAA first team last year with Paige Juju. She doesn't get talked about at the level of all of them, but she's putting herself well in the Player of the Year.
Don't they compare her to Juju a little bit?
Because she's
a scorer.
She is like 5'6", and she is a scorer. So she averaged last year 23, 6, and 5 steals on 45% shooting. She's averaging 25, 6, 3.5 assists because Olivia Miles, her teammate, is a true point guard. They have the best backcourt in the country by far. And then she's averaging another 5 steals this year, shooting 49% from the floor, 41% from 3.
So she's Juju mixed with Dyson Daniels.
So they won 74-61 against USC. She had 24.6 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, was the best player offensively, was the best player defensively, guarded Juju, actually gave her fits from time to time, even though Juju's like 7 inches taller than her. Like, she's legitimately one of the best players in the country. She's 4. Or a 3 or 4. I would say Paige is 1 to me, Juju's 2. Some people would flip that, whatever. Those are your top 2. And Hannah's probably 3rd. Honestly, to me, I think she would have to be 3rd. Olivia Miles, her teammate's very good. And then there's other people you could really dive into. But respect on Hannah Hidalgo's name. And when you're talking about Juju, when you're talking about Paige, Obviously, Caitlin's no longer there in the game, but when you were talking about Hannah deserves to be in the conversation with all of them. She is just as good as any one of, or just on same tier of like all of those people. Girls.
See, I thought you were going to go with the Unrivaled League because they've recently come out with the teams, the rosters. There's actually...
Nope.
This is the funny part about it, Keenan, that we didn't discuss. We talked about it briefly off camera, but they released the full rosters, and there's 2 open spots on teams. There's just 2
I did see
spots.
that.
So I wonder if that's maybe saved for in case an Asia Wilson or Caitlin Clark wants to come along later, or if they literally just like maybe there's players that do want to play, but it's in limbo and they're just kind of waiting.
No, they're waiting for Asia and Caitlin to be like, hey, can you 2 best players in their sport, 2 most popular players in our sport, come compete in this, please? Thanks.
I'm very intrigued by that league. They're actually doing something. So they have their own, I think, All-Star Weekend that they're going to do halfway through. And they're going to do something that people have been pining for the NBA to do forever, hypothetically, which is a one-on-one tournament. And I think it involves literally their entire league. I don't think it's just like 1 or 2 or 3 players from each team. I think it's literally a league-wide one-on-one tournament. So that's going to be pretty dope. These games are going to be on TNT, so they're going to be accessible. So I was actually going to say, Keenan, like I'm probably not going to turn into the women's college basketball, probably up until tournament time.
Mm-hmm.
But I could definitely see myself through this winter, even with the NBA on, even, we'll have, the home stretch of the NFL here. I can still definitely see myself tuning into what's going on in Unrivaled. So
the same. That's without said. I'll be definitely tuning into that.
Granted, that's actually that'll be way past the NFL season.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, it starts in January.
It starts in January, so like it'll be playoff time. So but obviously it should
actually the perfect time.
As long as they're
days of the NBA.
Yeah, I was gonna say as long as they're not doing anything on Sunday, they just should know Sunday's not our day.
I think it's only Tuesday and Thursday.
I was gonna say Sunday
I'm
is
almost positive it's weekdays.
Yeah, especially if it's TNT, then it must be like but. Yeah, so I'm happy for that too. But women's college basketball, like this year, is going to be just as much fun as the last few years have been, as much as a lot of years have been. But there's just so much talent in the league right now. There's a lot of teams. South Carolina lost for the first time in like almost 1,000 days. They lost to UCLA, who's also a very, very good team. So, yeah, that's my Galaxy view. Shout out to women's college basketball. Alrighty. Kyle, I'm gonna let you cook. What's on your mind?
Let's kind of have a brainstorming session here. I don't have anything really important. I love that we have, I think within the last 10 to 12 years, I don't think it's always been the case that we've had 3 Thanksgiving games. Seems like it's over the past 10 to 15 years. I could be completely wrong about it. We've always had 3. Mm-hmm. But I want to say it was only the first 2 games, the Cowboys game and the Lions game, respectively. Mm-hmm. I'm almost wondering, and this is less about the late Thanksgiving game and more about now the Black Friday game. I just mentioned Cowboys got their own game, Lions got their own game. I think maybe keep the late Thursday night game an open spot. we got with the Cat trying. Cat wants to be a star now. Cat wants to be a star. Maybe keep the late Thursday night game as whoever. That always seems to be actually a pretty good matchup, which is funny because it's completely by chance. And it always seems like one of these 2 early games are either just ruined by a dumb team selection. Like they'll do it like with the best team in the division versus the worst team in the division. Or like it seems like we've gotten Cowboys Giants like way more than usual on Thanksgiving Day. I'm wondering though if we should have a Black Friday team. Last year we got a divisional matchup with the Jets and the Dolphins. This year we get, and I complained about this last week, this year we get Chiefs and Raiders, like whatever. All right. And maybe it could be a good game. Raiders are actually been competitive, weirdly enough, with their awful team. But I'm wondering if we should get a Black Friday team. Seems like we should. Who would be your suggestions for the Black Friday team?
Timmy, you go first.
I feel like you need a specific type team for that, too.
I am not sure who. With the Thanksgiving teams, it's like a historic thing, right? So it's like Cowboys are an old team that, they've won plenty of Super Bowls. Same with like the Packers, the Lions are an old historic franchise. I guess you should go new because it's Black Friday. This is like a new thing. So maybe a new team that's like a recent team that's been competitive, which I mean would really be the Chiefs right now. But
that was the team that I was thinking would be the Chiefs.
would be to
I
just
think
keep
the
the
Chiefs
Chiefs
would.
on
I think
there.
the Chiefs as a Black Friday game would make sense. I don't know. Just the thought of the Chiefs being Black Friday would make sense to me. That was the first team, and then I wish. I mean, the Raiders would be cool. Like if they just obviously the black uniforms, the Black Friday
Actually,
kind of thing. That they would be cool. I wish they could become good
You know
because
what?
then it really would. But the Raiders, the Chiefs Raiders, this game was so obviously this was on Christmas last year, and I mentally thought that this game was Black Friday because I just remember it being on a holiday. So it already mentally to me felt like this was like the back-to-back game on Black Friday, even though it was a Christmas game last year. I would go with the Chiefs or the Raiders, and the Raiders would make sense to me just because of the Black Friday blackout uniform.
I actually think that's exactly what needs to happen. The Raiders are of the ilk of, I don't know if they're the original NFL or if they were an AFL team, but they're an older franchise, much like the Cowboys, much like the Lions. So actually, yeah, that is the team. It's got to be the Raiders of Vegas. It's too bad they're still not in Oakland playing in the black hole because that would have been sick. Yeah, let's get the Raiders good again. Tom, come on. You had the chance for Daniel Jones. That would have been an upgrade. We could have got Daniel Jones this Friday. That alone would have made this game better. I already opined for him to be signed by the Cowboys, so we could have got Daniel Jones versus Tommy DeVito this Friday, but did not happen. But man, if they would have got Daniel Jones, that would have actually made this game that much better. And I'm actually feeling just slightly better about it, even though again the Raiders have a trash ass team. They do seem to play Mahomes well. They famously, last year I thought that was it for the Chiefs. The way they manhandled the Chiefs last year, I really did not think they were going to do anything Super Bowl wise last year because of how they played against the Raiders. They had trouble getting it past midfield against the Raiders, but
last time you were here, the Chiefs did play the Raiders. In fairness, so I mean,
True.
second to last time you were here, but
true.
So
I think that's the move, though. Raiders Black Friday every year. Obviously, it looks like it's going to be just a rotating schedule, but
I think
makes a lot of sense for the Raiders.
think the Raiders Black Friday would make a
And they
lot
got the
of
fan
sense.
base enough to where they would have crazy ratings. They would have ratings anyway, but the Raiders, I mean, you got all of Cali, a lot of the West Coast out there that would be watching, so
Yep.
that'd be dope.
Yeah, you can make
They
that
could
a whole.
also
They
could also do some sort of alternate jersey where they're just completely blacked out, as black as you can make that jersey. That'd be pretty dope to have a theme to it every single year.
Bring back the what was it, that Thursday night when they did the color rush shit?
Yeah,
Yep.
the
That
color.
would be their move. And actually, funny enough, I think the Raiders was a white color rush. They never did an all black.
No.
It'd be hard with the numbers, but they didn't go monochrome black. They went monochrome white.
You'd have to, if you were gonna do that, you would just have to outline. If you outline the numbers in names in a lighter gray, so it didn't the white would make it pop a lot, which could be cool. But if you did it in a gray, it would still kind of give the black theme, but you'd still be able to kind of see the numbers and things. But there's a way to design those jerseys. I think the Raiders would be the team just because they obviously fit that aesthetic. All right, Timmy, what are we cooking with?
So the NFL, the last 2 or 3 years, when they determine the schedules, they use AI. I believe they use Amazon. They use some sort of AI assistant type deal. They put in all the games and then they say, make us the best schedule based on, whatever. It has led to some weird things, like the Pittsburgh Steelers are about to play, like we've stated this 100 times, they're playing 6 divisional games in 8 weeks, and that's a crazy thing. A couple other teams have that same exact deal. What it also created is this week specifically, we saw 2 very good, I guess, competitive teams on bye. So I'm only preaching this because my fantasy team, my entire team was on bye this week. We had the Bengals off, we had the Bills off, we had the Falcons off. There just seems to be they need to find a better way to make the bye weeks not have so many teams on the bye at the same time. And then specifically, they need to get rid of late buys. We had teams have bye weeks in week 6, but then the Ravens don't get a bye till week 14. A week 14 bye is so much more beneficial to a team than a week 6 bye is. You're gearing up for the playoffs. You get to rest up. I think they just got to fix the bye. So I get it. Put it in the AI, and that's statistically the best way to do it. But I still think they got to come in and tweak it a little bit because we had too many good teams on bye, and the byes are running way too late. I think we got to keep them towards the middle of the season for the bye weeks. Like specifically, weeks 8 through 12 should be bye weeks, and then put all the bye weeks in there. They all need to get byes in that section, so nobody's getting like a specific advantage.
You say 8 through 12?
Yeah, I'm thinking like keep it in the middle of the season, so like you're getting off weeks towards the middle of the season. You're not getting like a super late, like a week 14 bye to me is crazy because it's like you get a bye and then you have a month of football between that and the playoffs. Whereas teams, like I said, getting that week 6 bye now have like 3 months of football before they get a playoff game. So
it's funny because it seems like the last few seasons the byes have gotten weirder. And maybe it's something maybe I just didn't realize in the past, but it does seem like there's weeks where you just get a lot of teams off, like this past week. And I will say, when I heard that the Ravens got a week 14 bye, I'm like, that almost seems like the latest bye I've ever heard. I'm sure it's not, but it seems like the byes are normally wrapped up by 12 or 13. I do think Thanksgiving week should be the last bye. Maybe do it week 6 through 12, but then it's hard to, like, how do you even it out in those 6 weeks? There is a way to do it, I'm sure. But it does seem like it's gotten weirder and weirder. There is more and more weeks where it just seems like there's like, it's not literally this, but it seems like there's 8 teams on a bye. Again, It's not literally that. I think at the most you get 5, but even that seems like a lot. And it adds to some weird TV windows like this past week. And I'm not complaining about this, but the last couple of weeks we've gotten like 3-4 p.m. games. Where you could put some of the 1 p.m. games in the 4 o'clock window and maybe even it out a little bit. Not complaining because it does make it an easy viewing experience, but I don't know. It seems like we get some weird TV slates too.
I'm thinking of it because it would make sense to have 4 teams off per week, so you have 14 games still, but that would be 8 weeks. But if you did it like weeks 5 through 12,
13, yeah, 12.
Because technically 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if you did it 5 through 12 and didn't have anything, so then like last week would be the last bye week would be the week right before Thanksgiving. So going into Thanksgiving, there's no other team that's on a bye.
How have they not done it that way?
And
that's just so simple the way you just said it. 5 through 12, 4 teams off. How have they not? And did they not do it that way before? Like it does seem like the byes have just gotten so much weirder these last 3 years.
It is odd, and I don't really understand it because then you go at this point. Okay, so start the season off first 4 weeks. There's always 16 games. From 5 to 12, there's always 14 games. From 13 to 17, there's always 16 games, and then you just kind of go on it from there. And then you do your 2 AFC, your 2 NFC teams. Don't do them in the same division, and then I don't know. That just seems like the easiest way to me. Don't do them in the same division. 2 AFC, 2 NFC each week. I don't know. That just seems like it'd be a very simple thing for me, but that's how I would do it.
They could definitely do that. They could just rotate, AFC North, NFC North, whatever it is, and they could just do it on a rotating, just like you said, and it would be perfect. So the problem is right now, like this week, we had 6 teams on bye.
Yeah,
3 of them weren't very good teams. I understand, but like 6 teams is way too much because like 3 weeks ago we had 4. It's like, and then 1 week in between that there were no teams on bye. Like they have weeks that they could have put 2 of those teams on bye, but instead they choose to just pile on 6 teams on bye at the end of the season.
No, I don't. I really don't understand. It just feels like they'd make it more complicated than it has to be. Just 5 through 12, 4 teams a week, 2 AFC, 2 NFC. Never do more than 1 in a division. So say if it's the Steelers and then the Texans and then the Lions and the Falcons the next week, and then you just continue to go on. I don't know. That seems like the easy thing to me. And then you're right. You eliminate the, oh man, we got 13 games this week. Then we got 15 games this week. Then 14 here. Then it's like it just makes it awkward. And especially, and I know they shouldn't have to cater to this because it's the NFL. You cater to the players, the organizations, all that. But like fantasy is such a big thing. And like honestly, like the way that people, like the market makes money off of it, like they make so much money off of betting, fantasy, and stuff like that. Like you would think not cater to it, but you think that it would make it much easier. I don't know. That's just my thought because you're right. You just have so many people on bye this week, and it was like, okay, what are we gonna do? But all right, so I'm going to do something for the first time and let me cook history. It's been 2 weeks. I'm not going to talk about sports. I'm going to talk about good old Kendrick Lamar dropping himself an album. GNX, 44 minutes, 20 seconds of an album. I very, very much like everything he's doing. He had the minute snippet before, like when he the GNX, the kind of the car driving around, and then a song that was there, which already alludes to me that there's another project coming because the song wasn't any of the songs that were actually on the album. Something's coming with that music on it, and that I'm excited for because the same way right before the Not Like Us video he had, which is now Squabble Up, he had that whole beat drop in that 20-second snippet, which I loved, and the song I Squabble Up, I very much like that song. Whacked Out Murals might be my favorite Kendrick intro of all time. Out of all of his intros, obviously it's been Shireen, aka Master Splinter's daughter, Wesley Sterry, really DNA, even though technically Blood is that one. United in Grief is all for his major debuts albums. But Whacked Out Murals, I love the way that he addresses everything that's kind of been going on. Obviously, the Lil Wayne thing, the Super Bowl, people not. And he comes into this album in just such a way that's like he's keeping the same energy that he kept throughout the entirety of the Drake kind of beef, and this everything he's kept in 2024. Obviously, he had his kind of therapeutic album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, goes on from there, and now he's just in a completely different mindset. As Blick First and God Got Me. Like he's just like he's on 10 and just trying to go, and whoever's against him doesn't matter. And I'm loving everything that I'm hearing from him. The album, comparatively so, I think it's very good. I want to let it breathe a little bit more before I try to give it a rank between his whole discography. But I love everything he's doing. The Heart Part 6, or the Heart Part 6, not the Heart Part 6, shout out to whatever Drake did, but Heart Part 6, that was crazy. Whacked Out Murals is my favorite. Luther, I think that song's great. Reincarnated, the Tupac homage, I think that was great too. I love the production on it. I love everything Kendrick's been doing this year. I think he's had a flawless 2024, and I think it's only going to go into a flawless 2025 with a Super Bowl performance, multiple Grammy Awards, multiple awards all over the place, and maybe more music coming out from him. So shout out to Kendrick for GNX. I was shocked, as everybody was, and I loved it.
Tim, what you got?
I am not a big music fan like you guys are, so to be honest with you, call me a fake fan. I didn't even Kendrick dropped an album. So this is news to me. I will be listening to it. I will be adding it in and listening to it, though. So
it's fine.
Throw it on in the truck. Hell yeah. It was funny. You know what? I'm glad you brought it up because we definitely needed to talk about it. I actually can't believe I didn't put it in my
I thought you were. I'm not gonna lie to you. Really thought you were.
But so yeah, it drops Friday. I'm like leaving for work. I'm just happen to be looking at Twitter, and someone literally just tweets it just this plainly. Kendrick album just dropped. And I'm like, I can see it, but really? Like let's see, right? And I go to trending, and I can't remember if he was under any of the trending topics, but I'm like, let me go to Spotify, and sure enough, GNX is there. And I'm like, I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. Like that's how artists of Kendrick's caliber should do it. Drake famously did it with if you're reading this, it's too late. I believe Lemonade was a surprise drop. Yeah, right?
Lemonade was a surprise.
Perfect way to do it, man. He's had like you said, King, he's had a flawless year. He's obviously the MVP of rap in 2024. Even if he didn't put that album out, he obviously would have been the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just drops it in November, no warning. So it was, noon Eastern time around the time he dropped it.
Yep.
But then you got to figure if you're waking up on the West Coast, or if you're just at work, or in this case driving to work, it's 9 a.m. on the West Coast when you're getting this album. That's super dope. That is on another level of just, I don't want to say powerful, but truly an MVP move, truly a baller move. Like you're in your own lane if you can drop an album at 9 a.m. Because let's be real, that album's meant for the West Coast.
Yeah.
Keenan, when we did our Creator album, the last one we did was Kendrick Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
And I based mine all around, and this will probably be spoiler alert, my complete strategy every time now. I just base it around like my favorite songs with the best beats. I want to make the best sonically sounding album of Kendrick Lamar I could, because I feel like he can just get weird on some albums, like Mr. Morale. Whatever. I mean, he's still all-time great, nonetheless.
It's great music. It's just completely, he does great music for certain times, and then obviously there's like the great beats one where it's just like Backseat Freestyles is good whenever. Like you can put that on anytime.
And that's why Damn's my favorite album of his. I feel like it's the best, the easiest listen, the most sonically impressive album. And then this is right there. GNX is an amazing album as far as beats go. There's not a beat I hate on the album. There's not a song that I'm like, I gotta skip this on this album. It's such an easy listen. He's obviously killing shit too. He's just rapping his ass off. If I had to say what my favorite track is, I think it's got to be Dodger Blue. It's far away from what Kendrick would put out, honestly. Like, it's not a vibe I would expect. It's a vibe that he apparently killed. But I was not expecting that type of laid-back vibe. He put a lot of thought into this album. I know people are kind of comparing it to a mixtape, which makes sense because he goes over a Pac beat. He goes over a SWV beat. And he goes over one mic even. That was dope. That was super dope that he went over one mic. Nas gave him his props.
Nas the only one to congratulate him. So, I mean, on the Super Bowl, so that's, of course that's why he's going to do it.
Yeah, and...
splash time.
And back when I first heard Kendrick, I mean, I've compared Kendrick to Three Stacks. Like, the two rappers he reminded me of the most back in the day, like, first heard him at 1920, was Three Stacks and Nas. I think he's very much a West Coast Nas to me. And hopefully, because I do believe, like you, Keenan, I think there's another project coming, maybe closer to the Super Bowl. Would be amazing if we got a Kendrick and Nas collaboration. That would be super dope. I actually can't believe they haven't collabed.
I would love it.
Well done, Kendrick. Well done.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was listening to like the Tupac, obviously that like reincarnated. For some reason, I was like, Eminem's coming in at some point. Like I mentally just thought to myself, like Eminem's gonna come, because I think that he would have killed that, but not that he. I don't know why the way Kendrick was flowing. I just thought to myself that Eminem would have just came in and kind of did his thing on that, but. That was one of my first, but I love it. Absolutely love it. Jacob Cunningham, I don't know if you'll ever see this, a guy who I worked with. He no longer works at Dick's, but I saw him today. Said the album was mid, almost punched him in the throat.
What?
He said the album was mid, like at best, because he's not really.
It was mid.
Yeah, he's not really a Kendrick. He's not a Kendrick fan. He's a Drake over Kendrick guy. Oh. And then he basically,
he's an Aubrey angel.
Yeah, no, he's still salty. Speaking of Aubrey, putting out a suing Kendrick. What is this? He's a Karen.
Listen, man.
Did you see why he's suing?
Yes, yes. He thinks, and he might be right that Spotify kind of influenced the streams. Which, listen, I'll say this: when Drake dropped Scorpion. Was that 2018?
Yeah.
I have never seen, this is Taylor Swift included, who's probably the biggest artist on earth. I have never seen such press for an album on an app. It was disgusting. That's probably one of the most listened to albums. And it would have to be because anytime you open that app, it was either in the background, it was either something popping up letting you know that Scorpion dropped. I remember having vivid conversations with other people who may not have been Drake fans, but were hip hop fans that were like, yo, we get it. Like he dropped an album. Like, so
and it was pretty
rich of Drake to talk about.
And speaking of mid, that was mid. Like
Scorpion?
There was, it was.
Scorpion's a cool album.
It was just like it's cool.
I'd say it's mid.
See, to me, mid's just like in the middle, like it's average. It's
I would
fine.
say his last album. That's hot mid. I mean, come on.
There's a difference between mid and hot mid.
Well, I mean, like,
but
it's mid. Like it's okay music. It's not inspired music. Scorpion's probably the last real inspired effort he's dropped. So actually. Like quite a bit of songs on Scorpion, so I wouldn't necessarily call that mid. I'd say maybe 7 out of 10. But I mean, to each their own. Yeah. But you kind of took the words out of my mouth, Keenan. The way Drake's operated, just since he's dropped, there's no coming back for Drake. I don't think people were already on his neck, but I think if he would have just went away and just like took his loss, I think people would have welcomed him back with grace in a year or two.
Same way Meek did. Meek kind of left. He kind of had his like little shots at Drake, and then Meek was like, "I'm just gonna do my own thing." And then Meek came back, and obviously he went to jail and came back, and that kind of helped him too. But if Drake just says, "Yeah, I lost," he puts out the Heart Part 6. He kind of just goes away, doesn't go over the whole Sexy Red. out like song and just trying to put himself Wangwan Delilah, like these random songs, just goes away, comes back. The best way to come back from something is just to drop fire music. If he would have just put out, as I said in the group chat, the second I heard, I was like, he needs to Take Care Part 2. And I meant more
He
so.
doesn't have it in him.
I don't think he has it in him. I don't think
It's over. I've never, like, I thought it was trending this way, but I truly believe as an artist, as a top tier artist, it's over for Drake. Unless he really does go away and drop some, like, truly inspired shit.
And this isn't numbers for anyone watching that thinks it's not going to be numbers wise. Numbers wise, he'll be fine because he has enough Drake stands out there that it's not going to do the same numbers.
It's not going to. It's never going to be.
Nothing was the same.
I think if he,
was the same.
You could pick a pun at this point with Drake, right?
Take care. Nothing was the same. If you're reading this, Drake, it's too late.
I mean, I really do think, especially if you were to drop, if he dropped right now, he almost would get numbers because people would want to hear what's on there. So you're right. Maybe still he would, but it's never going to be the same for him. There's always going to be, it's kind of like that era when under every YouTube comment, no matter what for NBA, you'd see a LeBron traveled,
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see that as much anymore, but like it's an inside joke, sure, whatever. But I think that's going to be the case forever with Drake. Anytime Drake drops something, you're going to just see something about Kendrick.
A minor.
Exactly. I've said what I said about Not Like Us. Like, I actually hate that song. If I never heard it again, I would be okay.
I want to hear it one more time, and it's at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll hear it at the Super Bowl.
That's the one other time, and that could actually, like, in 10 years, I'll come back and be like, oh, yeah, that was the time to be alive. That was a great time.
But that's exactly why it's never going to be the same for him, because you're going to have them saying A minor, calling Drake a pedophile at the Super Bowl. Like, that's going to be played forever. And it clearly gets to him, as it should, but it'd be different if he just disappeared, took the L, and he's just doing the most Karen type shit. Suing, going on a streamer's fucking stream and just talking about, like, I think he's a popular Canadian streamer. I don't know what the fuck he is, but talking about how The Weeknd is his op, or, this other artist. It's fucking Steve Lacy. What the fuck you got beef with Steve Lacy for? Like, Drake, like, you just talking about artists who don't even matter and you just seem hella salty. It's kind of embarrassing. I don't know. I'm very interested.
His moves are admitting he's lost badly. And it's one thing to, like, we know you lost, but, like, if you just go home, shake hands, and then you go about your business, you go about your business. I mean, kind of think LeBron obviously had the decision, and then LeBron lost to the Mavericks. But you can correct me, Kyle, if I'm wrong. I don't remember LeBron doing anything crazy over that summer. I don't remember his name.
He stayed pretty quiet.
He was quiet. Obviously, the talks about him, because it's sports, it's like, okay, his biggest meltdown, will he ever be able to catch Jordan, blah, blah, because obviously that's always what you're going to reach to in sports. But he was quiet. He came back next year, had an MVP season. He came back there, and MVP season. He came back. He put up arguably his most important game to me was his 45-point against Boston, arguably his best game ever. You could say the 51 he put up in Game 1, even though that was a loss. You could say multiple performances, but he put up greatness, got himself a championship, and then from there on has continued to be a top 4 player, unarguably ever. So, like, he just shut up and went on. And then once you beat the Warriors 3-1, then you can start doing your LeBron talking and doing whatever, because you've got enough under your belt. But, like, at this point, just be quiet, put out an album, inspired great music, and just let the beef be what the beef was.
I would say this.
That's my thoughts on him.
I would say this real quick. Like, how Drake is handling himself to compare it to sports, this would be like after DeAndre Jordan, after he dunked on Brandon Knight. It would have been like if Brandon Knight came out after getting dunked on and was like, the dunk wasn't that good. You guys see when I crossed over, you know what I mean? It would have been like if he kept talking about it 2 weeks later when we've all moved past it.
Yeah, and I wasn't the only person who ever got posted by DeAndre
right?
Jordan. Like,
exactly.
We don't care. Like, Brandon Knight handled it great. He laughed about it. Yeah, you got caught. You got bodied. It's one of the greatest dunks of all time, especially off a lob. Okay, yeah, move on. It happens. People get you. And it's by Kendrick. It's not like you got beat by just some random guy. It's not like Quavo beat you in a rap battle. Like, if that happened, that's terrible. You can't lose to Quavo. You lost to this generation's GOAT. It's fine. It happens. We thought it was going to happen. I mean, half the people thought it was going to happen. Half the people thought you were going to win. But, like, we get it.
See, we got to do a part 2 because I got so much to say music-wise.
I mean,
this generation's GOAT is interesting. He's definitely the best lyricist. Drake obviously has a claim, but it's such a good argument.
Yeah.
I did see someone post the other day, and this kind of made me upset. They said that Drake ran the game for 15 years. That's kind of it's a little bit of a stretch. I don't know if it's 15 years, but... And then he said, like, now that Drake's washed, or now that the people in their 20s are now in their early to mid 30s are washed, that now it's Kendrick's time. I disagree with that because Kendrick's been the best lyricist that entire time and has been nearly as big of an artist, at least in hip hop circles, just as big as an artist as Drake that entire time. It's not like Kendrick was of, I don't know, like a Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace. It's not like he was of his ilk where he was kind of niche and then kind of appeared. You know what I mean? So it's not like that. So it's weird. People get off their takes of this. And that was, you know, not necessarily a bad take, but I thought it was just a little missed the point. I'm talking about a random tweet here, whatever.
It's been more LeBron Steph than it's been LeBron Paul George.
Sure.
Well, I say Paul George just because obviously Paul George went against LeBron multiple times in the playoffs, and it was like that was starting to become a rivalry. Or like Kevin Durant was a thing, and then he kind of faded, and then kind of I'll even say LeBron Durant per se. Because, like, LeBron and Durant was like, oh, are these guys neck and neck? And then they went to the finals, and then Durant kind of started to fade, and then obviously the Warriors became a thing, so it really became Steph, LeBron. LeBron was and then kind of just back and forth like that.
It's the app one is definitely MJ Prince.
Yep.
Drake's got all the numbers, and Kendrick's got all the acclaim. You know what I mean? All the.
He mentioned it himself.
Yeah, I mean, he made that comparison.
Prince outlived Mike.
Because people like to make the Nas and Jay-Z comparison, but Jay-Z, as more mainstream as he seems, him and Nas were just as mainstream as each other at that time. Jay-Z had more hits, but Jay-Z didn't even get his first number 1 until Empire State of Mind. So there's people who now in hindsight like to call Jay-Z a pop star, but trust me, it was not like that. Drake would be more comparable to like Eminem or Nelly in that regard.
Yeah.
Jay-Z and Nas, that was a rapper's beef.
I mean, 50 was more like a pop like than Jay, like in the sense of like
just
because of hits.
Yeah, no,
just because of hits.
Of course, 50 would be in that conversation too. But 50 obviously is a rap beef. Just Titan.
No, he's a killer.
Mammoth.
No, he's a killer. So like he's not like pop, but like.
And weirdly enough, he's been on Drake's side through this whole thing, which is funny enough. But I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's crazy how quickly someone of Drake's caliber can fall. It seems like it's been building up, honestly. It's wild. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think we do have to do a part 2 at some point. I know you're working Black Friday. Maybe we can get this on Thanksgiving.
We'll have to talk to Duke and Brandon at some point.
Absolutely. I know Duke's got his thoughts. I know Brandon loves the album.
Those would be people to talk to about it.
I'm a phony. I say I love music, but I've heard only great things about this Tyler album, and I've yet to hear a single second of it.
Very good.
So,
very good.
I think we got one more topic.
Yeah, it's a star-studded moment. To be quite honest with you, albums-wise, has been kind of insane this year. There's been a lot of albums.
Been a lot of great albums. It's been a good music year.
It's gonna be
a great music year.
Last year was hard for me to get to 10. This year it's gonna be hard for me to get to 10 in a different way. Like I'm gonna have to cut like maybe 8 to 10 albums. Like there's just so many albums this year when we do our end of the year, which is coming up very shortly, oddly, which is really weird to think. But all right, well, let me cook, and then let us cook on a 15-minute Kendrick Lamar session talking about Drake. He deserves it. Timmy, what's your star-studded moment? What's your biggest takeaway from Week 12 in the NFL?
My biggest takeaway, I'm going to focus in on one team again. I think that the Titans, I guess, showed us something this weekend, and that's pretty much what we said last week, me and Kyle. We pretty much said if you take away Mixon and you put this whole game on C.J. Stroud, they're going to crumble. They're going to come falling down. So my takeaway is without Mixon being what he has been this year, the Texans are not contenders. If you can take out Mixon, you can take out the Texans. He had 50 total yards in this game. It was like 56 total yards. in a game that they scored 27 points. You would think that he had 100 and something and a touchdown or maybe 2 touchdowns, but they took him out of this game. And, we had the CJ Stroud safety. We had, a couple other ugly moments that cost him this game. And that's pretty much what we were saying was if you put this right on CJ Stroud's shoulders, it's not going to work. So
They got a defensive touchdown. They got damn near a kick return touchdown, and then obviously they gave up a safety. But that's pretty much 14 points that they garnered without their offense. So take that. That's really 13 points worth of offense they did, and honestly, essentially 15. They gave up a safety, so they gave the other team 2. So if you want to count even as 11, sure. So without Mixon, their offense really was non-existent. It was the fact that their defense gave them something, and their special teams pretty much gave them 7. So I mean, you're completely right when you're talking about that, Kyle.
Yeah, this team, the Jags got to be kicking themselves because the Jags have all the talent in the world on both sides of the ball, and this Texans team just is not good. I actually had them going neck and neck in my preseason predictions. Even despite Doug Peterson being their head coach, I thought, all right, there's enough talent there. I don't necessarily
every team in the division, if you want to be honest, if the Titans had a QB, they would be okay, we might be there because they may not lose that game to the Bears early in the season, which they shouldn't have lost. There's a couple games and they could be competing. Obviously, the Colts, their QB situation has been just a carousel. Anthony Richardson's been here, been gone, and then obviously Joe Flacco was fine and he was playing whatever, and they're even close to. They could still technically get the division, and then obviously, as you were talking about, you're going to continue to. The Jags, if they just won a couple close games, they'd be right there with the Texans right now, who are not looking great.
Yeah, no, the Texans, I mean, I'm very interested to see what happens with Bobby Slowick this offseason because obviously they're going to make the playoffs. Maybe they win a game, who knows, but I can't think of anyone whose stock has dropped more in a year coming off, the successful season they had last year. And yeah, maybe I was a little skeptical that they could actually continue this train of just being not only successful, but they just had a tougher schedule. It's tough to do that. And it's one thing, they've actually been weirdly competitive in these games, but it's just been such a bore to watch. That Lions game, you got a guy throwing you 5 picks and you lose that game. That's pathetic. I can't take this team seriously at all.
They have 2 of the worst losses for a playoff contending team this year because that's a terrible. Yeah. I mean, obviously, kudos to the Lions for winning that game, but that's a bad loss.
They're lucky that the Lions are the NFL's darling, and most people looked at that wow, incredible Lions, because this was pathetic. It was pathetic, and they've been a pathetic team. Again, they won't do a thing in these playoffs. They're not a team like the Bengals have looked pathetic on defense, but we can at least say, okay, they make it to the playoffs. Same with the Dolphins. Each of them make it to the playoffs. They can at least put the fear of God in whatever team they're facing. That's not the Texans. Stroud seems to have taken a half step back even. I still think he's a great quarterback. I still think he's a smart quarterback, but disappointing team because you know what? The people who were on them as a 12-win team, a contender, it was all there. It was all there for it. And I don't see anything turning around. I don't think this is going to be a Chiefs situation last year where I come in here after Christmas and say, oh, this team's cooked. No, we've kind of been on this all season, Tim especially. They're just a boring, plodding, just ugly-ass team that's got talent, and they don't use it. Mixon, he's had an incredible season. He's been great to watch. But outside of that, this team is going to get in just because, in spite of their division, really. So, yeah, it's just ugly all around.
It was, prior to the season, most quarterback lists had Stroud over Herbert. As of right now, I know for a lot of people that's definitely switched.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Stroud's still top 10. He's not a bad
QB.
It's not like he's making dumb mistakes, but he's been uninspiring, without a doubt.
He hasn't made... Last year he was making great plays and not turning the ball over. This year he has been making less great plays and turning the ball over more. So it's just kind of, he's still a top 10 quarterback. He's still very good. I still would want to have him on my team. I like everything about CJ Stroud. I still like everything about him. It's just someone like Herbert who was in his class, but you felt, CJ Stroud has a little bit more of seems like he has a little bit more of that late game, a little bit more of that composure, and makes a little bit more big plays than Herbert does when it matters. Herbert's showing, obviously, the Bengals game, he made the big play there. He's showing this year that he's been able to do that, and a lot to Jim Harbaugh, so shout out to Jim for that. But Herbert's been playing probably his best season so far, quarterbacking. But Timmy, unless you have another point that you wanted to make with your point, Kyle, it is what's your moment, what's your star-studded moment, biggest takeaway of the week?
Got to go with the Detroit Lions. Man, this team continues to check every box. If they would have lost to the Colts on Sunday, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. I don't think anybody would have said, okay, this is not a Super Bowl team. It would have been a loss like that. I want to say would have been expected, but we wouldn't have been tripping over it at all. Mm-hmm. In fact, like I thought it was at the least going to be a close game. The Lions dominated that game. They continue to check every single box. They really do. And if they win tomorrow against the Bears, as far as I'm concerned, it's Lions versus the field. And it's insane anytime we give the Lions that much credit because of how much of a cursed poverty franchise they've been all of our entire lives. We could even say our grandparents' entire lives. Like it's legitimately been that case. Mm-hmm. That's how bad of a franchise this has been. And, we'll talk about it more in depth here in about 5 minutes, but they're, for whatever reason, a 9.5-point favorite against the Bears. I think that's insane. I'm kind of scared of that because it makes me wonder if there's an injury we don't know about on the Bears. And because otherwise I would think everyone would jump on that. I mean, you just don't see that kind of line for a divisional game unless it's a full mismatch. Granted, I get it's on 4 days rest. And Tim, like you said, Lions coughed up this game last year against the Packers when everybody was on them. But man, let's say they do cover, let's say they beat the Bears by like 12 to 15 points tomorrow. I mean, it has to be Lions or the field. What other team can you give me? I don't care that the Ravens look great. I don't care that the Eagles got Saquon doing his thing. Like, there's no team you could give me as far as I'm concerned, especially after tomorrow. And I get we got a lot of season left. I know there's a lot that can happen, injuries or otherwise. One of these teams could emerge. I said like the Packers, I'd like to see them emerge. Someone's got to emerge, right? And in the AFC is loaded between the Ravens, between the Bills, between the Chiefs, between the Steelers. I get it. They are all formidable opponents, but man, if the Lions just keep damn near running the table like this, what more can we say, right? And I hate to say it, I'm gonna say it. What if they went 16-1, make the playoffs and like lost it would only be the Lions, right? Like it would only be a franchise like the Lions. I'm just throwing it out there so the Lions fans don't have to. I'm throwing it out in the universe. I don't want it to happen. It's probably far-fetched for it to happen because they are so well coached. They do have an identity. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and they can apparently play defense even when their best defensive player isn't there. They check every box and then some, and they're carrying themselves like a championship team. And like we said prior, the bad teams, they blow the fuck out. Not just, 10 points, 20 points. They try to get up on 30, 40 on you. So shouts to the Lions. Kudos to the Lions. I can't believe what I'm seeing. They haven't had a single hiccup game since what? Who did they even lose to? It wasn't the Cardinals, right?
Buccaneers, week 2.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. So.
And a good Buccaneers team at that. When they had Chris Godwin, they had Mike Evans. That team was a good team.
And week 2, when I've said it a million times, it's basically preseason. So
it's a good team. Timmy, do you have anything to say about Kyle's stuff? Because I have stuff to say to him, and then I was going to say about it, and then I was going to go on with mine.
I don't have much to say. I mean, I was on him last week. I'm still on him this week. I'm going to be on him next week. It is. Right now, I'd say it's Lions versus the field. I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for the Lions to win a Super Bowl this year, even as not Lions fans. So
2 years ago when they started to be good, I was a very big fan of the Lions. Last year, I was a very big fan of the Lions, and this year I'm still the same. Kyle, it would actually – the franchise wouldn't shock me, the fact that you saw the Lions do something great and then choke it away. But this team, actually, this iteration of it would. Just
it's hard to see.
It's
hard to imagine.
And they truly feel like this year they could win a Super Bowl. Last year, it was more like can they get there? Like, they have the team for it. Like, but this year, it feels like so much more concrete. Like, yeah, I think they could win the Super Bowl. Just like that concrete. Just because I saw them go to the NFC Championship game last year. I saw them in that NFC Championship game go to a different building and put fear into the 49ers. It took great plays from Brock Purdy in the second half, a couple bad plays. I think there was a missed fourth down play that they had, a couple bad plays down the stretch for the Lions to lose that game. They very much could have won that game, and they'd already beaten the Chiefs. Granted, it was week 1, but they did beat the Chiefs last year in the playoffs, or in the regular season. They could have possibly in the Super Bowl. We will never know. But this year, it does feel like the Lions, it really is theirs to lose. The 49ers are not the same team. Other than the Eagles, there's not a team that really stands out that can be like, oh yeah, we really can beat the Lions. Really it's the Vikings and Packers, and a lot of that's divisional too, because obviously you see them a lot. They know you, you know them. So very high on the Lions. I agree with you, Kyle, and everything that you say. They are checking every single box. And if they do get Aiden Hutchinson back earlier rather than later, if they can get him NFC Championship game, that'd just be even a bigger jolt for that team, even if he's on a pitch count. But my moment is the Chiefs keep playing with fire. And it's just like a 30-27 win at the gun against the Panthers. Like, in one sense, they have this ability to make plays when they need to. Obviously, Mahomes has a big run, and then they get down into field goal range. And even though it's not Butker, they're still kicking a field goal for that. But like all season, and I get that like they execute so well down the stretch of games, and like that's how they're able to win it. But you've got a 4th and 16 against the Bengals, or else that game's done. Or like the 4th and 16 penalty, or else that game's done. Obviously, the Ravens, Isaiah Likely, one touch, one toe out, possibly could have lost that game. And I understand these are all possibles and they didn't happen, but at some point it just feels like you've done this so many times that at one point it's going to bite you, and it seems like it might be in the biggest moment this year rather than it being just in the regular season. It was the same way the Vikings a couple years back when they were 13-3, I believe, and they had just so many 3-point games that they were winning, and then all of a sudden they do lose to the Giants in the playoffs in a very close game. It just like after some point you almost regress to the mean. At some point, all of these close games, you went on a blocked field goal, you have to make multiple field goals at the gun, you go to overtime and you have to beat the Buccaneers that don't even have their 2 top wide receivers. Like all of these games that just continue to pile up. And it's just at some point I feel like there's gonna be one game where they kind of go too close to the fire and they get themselves burnt, and then they don't get to the Super Bowl. I couldn't hope more. I hope they lose in the first round and get blown out. But like that's what I hope. I hope they get waxed in the first round. But I just feel unless they get a second round division, whatever their first playoff game is, I hope it's Joe Burrow going there and just waxing them. That's what I would hope. That's like my dream. But like that's obviously probably not going to happen. But still, that's just my thoughts on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, that echoes pretty much what the three of us have been talking about with the Chiefs. It's like sooner or later, like, yeah, I get they win in these close games, but like we also see the product on the field. It's not great. You know what I mean? And the defense is definitely there. Like you got a defense like that, you're going to get Pacheco back. Like they're still going to be dangerous, especially with Pacheco coming back.
Absolutely.
Thing is though, I mean, really, let's say divisional round, let's say they got a home game and they get the Bills or the Ravens. Or even the Steelers. Either one of those 3 teams, I can picture going into Arrowhead and
or
winning.
The Chargers, even. I can see the
Chargers. Yeah, Chargers.
Literally any play, and honestly, depending on who the last team is, the Broncos. I mean, maybe I could upset them. The only team I really couldn't see out of the running would be the Dolphins. I'd be shocked if the Dolphins went into Kansas City. The Bengals did. If they managed to get there, I could see it. If the Broncos just division matchup, just randomly something random happened, Sean Payton coaches a masterclass, even that could be like a bigger upset. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd go that far.
That one would shock me. But like, I could see that more than the Dolphins.
I was Mr. Chargers before, but I still need to see just a little bit more from the Chargers down the stretch here, especially with J.K. Dobbins out, which while we're talking fantasy, that just might submarine my season. On top of it'll be a moment in history that we'll talk about in the league. The week Kyle left 100 points on his bench 2 weeks ago. That was insane. I lost by like 10. Like what's going on here? But for real, the Ravens, the Steelers, the fuck else I said, the Bills Like they're not going to be scared to go on Arrowhead, and the cold weather won't affect them either. They can all mess with the cold weather. They all got teams equipped for the cold weather. So I mean, all it takes is an injury to Kelsey, injury to Andre Hopkins. I'm not wishing this, but a key injury. Their offensive line's been banged up, and we saw how that worked for them in the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay a few years back. You know, I've kind of said it, but I believe it now more than ever. I mean, it's not set in stone that we're getting them in the AFC Championship game. I picked Bills and Ravens for my AFC Championship game before the year, and that was kind of as a hope. But week by week, man, I'm believing it more and more. Pacheco coming back, that puts a little fear into my heart because he is probably their biggest asset. He's probably their biggest weapon at this point. I mean, you could say D-Hop or Kelsey, but Pacheco is really what makes that engine go, especially with the defense as physical as it is. But man, I mean, Derrick Henry, as long as Lamar can complete passes and choose to run like at cool times, like at proper times, Derrick Henry's going to run on him. So yeah, as long as Lamar could be an able-bodied quarterback like he was against the Texans, Ravens should win that game. The Josh Allen that we've seen every time, and if Tyler Bass can continue to kick well, Bills should win that game. Honestly, I truly believe those two at their best are better than the Chiefs. So we've talked about this a lot, though, this year, and we'll continue to talk about it down the stretch. I am intrigued by because Pacheco must be coming back Friday.
Yep. He's back it's not confirmed yet, but it's it's much speculated that he'll be back and playing on Friday.
For sure.
And that'd be a good game to get him back in. So, but yeah. All right. It is a little part of our picks, obviously. We usually get the Thursday night game, but this time you get a Thursday full Thanksgiving slate. We've got the 12 o'clock game. That is, we've alluded to this game before, and it is the Bears heading to Detroit. It opened up at 10.5 point favorites for Detroit. It is now at 9.5. People are on the Bears side of this. Timmy, or spread-wise, I should say. Timmy, where are you on it?
I think the Bears are going to cover. I think 9.5 is a lot still. It's a divisional matchup. The Bears have been playing well lately. And like I've said, Jared Goff hasn't won a Thanksgiving game yet. They seem to kind of struggle on Thanksgiving, so I think they're going to struggle a little bit. I still think they're going to win. I got a 26-21. I think we get a little nervous about the Lions tomorrow, but it's a divisional game. I'm not going to fault them for it, even at this line.
Kyle, you?
Yeah, I mean, you say people are backing the Bears. I would imagine all of America is going to be betting on the Lions tomorrow, especially on the money line. Like, I think that's going to be a super public, just them and maybe the Cowboys against the Giants on top of the Packers. Like, I could see that being the 3-leg parlay across America. And along with the Chiefs, throw the Chiefs in there with their game against the Raiders. I'm going to do something like when I pick these games, like if there's a game where I really could make a case either way, I usually pick it as a 1-point game. Like you, Tim, like everybody, like I truly cannot understand for the life of me why the hell the line would be even close to 10.5, even close to 9.5. Something's got to be running amok here that we just do not know about. Something's got to be going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Or people really do believe the Lions are that team. So I'm gonna pick a 30-21 game for the Lions. This is cowardly, so they barely cover. I could see the Bears winning this game, but I'm truly like, what's going on here for this to be the line? It's mysterious to me. It's fishy to me. So the Bears, I guess, do cover, but I'm worried. Maybe this could be a case where we come on here on Friday or Saturday, whenever we record, and it's like Lions won by 24. And there was some big injury we didn't know about, this or that. Bears Vikings, that did not go to overtime, correct?
Bears Vikings did overtime.
So maybe that could be the only reason why, because
you're coming off an overtime
victory, playing on Thursday, that historically, like, I don't even think teams have ever won in that situation. So that's got to be why this line is the way it is. I'll keep it the same score. We'll say the Bears cover. That's got to be why this line is the way it is. So maybe we should all just load up on the Lions, because maybe it should be the game, because Bears playing 5 quarters, then you got to go play a physical Lions team in Detroit. That's tough, and it's a rookie QB. It's a young team in general, so that's extremely tough.
That might be it. I just don't see it. It's just that with it being a divisional game, I understand it's Caleb Williams on as a rookie on Thanksgiving. It's a completely different circumstance. Jared Goff, as you said, he has lost in this spot, but he has been in the spot. I've got the Lions 27-20. I don't see a way they lose this game. And Kyle, you're right. Because I'll mentally go through and think of the spread in my head prior to checking, just because I would have put this at 6.5, roughly 5.5, 6.5, close to a touchdown game, but
I'll put that 4.5. Truly,
I thought divisional game close to 5.5 to 6 roughly was where I mentally thought, and I saw 10.5, and I was I instantly jumped on the Bears, and I was like, does Vegas know something that I don't? Is there something going on that Vegas happens?
It's usually the case.
Yeah, just does Vegas know
it's
something?
Usually the case. That's why we're all in the situation we are.
No, I was does Vegas know something that I don't? So, but anyways, I have this game 27-20, and something I was alluding to earlier, but I'm going to officially just say it now. My 3-leg parlay for this game, which I feel like is Jamison Williams 60 yards receiving. Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown, Bears plus 10.5. That is a plus 569, so that'd be 10 to win you about 60 roughly. So I love it. That's the 3-leg parlay that we're going to be we've already put in somewhere, and we're going to be just waiting. We're waiting for FanDuel and other places just to give the profit boost so I can just add it on so I can do that. But that is the parlay that I'm going to be hitting for sure.
I got to say,
doing for sure.
I got to say 2 things. One, I'm going to switch up, because I do know the whole 5 quarters overtime game coming into a Thursday thing is real. So I am going to switch to a Lions cover. I'm going to switch to 34-20. All right. And then the second thing I got to say, Keenan, I see on your notepad, you write your signature down.
Yep.
I used to, back in the day, college classes, high school classes, used to just write my signature over and over. And I don't know if that's narcissistic or not, but that would be my go-to doodle. So
that's kind of just always what I do. I don't know. I have a signature.
Maybe that's a Warner Brothers thing. I don't know.
Just write my signature in a bunch of different ways. I have a messy one, a clean one. I don't know why. I just write it all the time. But all right. The 10.5 now just really getting me. I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know. I'm really shocked. Anyways, we're going to go on Giants versus the Cowboys. Cowboys are favored by 3.5.
Well, look, everyone's made the same joke about this game, talking about the nap I'm going to take during this game is going to be generational. I'm going to get a generational nap in during this game between Lions game and the Packers-Dolphins game. Listen, Tommy, a.k.a. Danny DeVito, will be starting this game still. The Giants all but quit last week in their game versus the Bucks. I actually, in my wisest wagers, gave out an alt line of 10.5, 9.5 for the Bucks because I thought they were going to blow out the Giants. I do not see why you couldn't do that here. This Cowboys team, regardless of all the mess they've had, they are a much better team than this Giants team. And it's still this is still a third-string quarterback. If this was Drew Lock versus Cooper Rush, I'd be okay with it. It'd be one thing. What's up, Tim?
Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
It just rolls off the tongue, man.
It does. I mean,
it really does.
Tommy
DeVito has a forearm injury. They're saying he's a long shot to play potentially.
Oh, really? So we might get Drew Lock.
Drew Lock has been taking first-team reps all week, so I think we're getting Drew Lock tomorrow.
That changes the entire complexion of what we think.
I did not know that. This game will be on in the background during whatever the hell Thanksgiving festivities will be going on here tomorrow. I can't imagine myself actually locking into this game until it's 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and maybe it's a close game. Sounds like it will be a competitive game now with Cooper Rush, Drew Lock, almost said Danny DeVito again.
Drew Barrymore.
Just because this game has no actual implications, Drew Barrymore. Just because this game has no actual implications, excuse me, and I do like Drew Lock as a backup quarterback, I'm going to pick the Giants to win. Let's say 23-17, 6-point win for the Giants. They get something to celebrate here, I guess, down the stretch.
Timmy, I'm going to go real quick. I don't have much to say on this game. I really debated picking a 20-20 tie because I don't have.
You should.
I
almost picked a tie last week as well.
20-20 tie. I have no idea what's going on here. 20-20 tie. This game's going to be a bunch of boring that I don't care to watch, and then it has the 5% chance of being a wildly entertaining NFC East bad football teams going at it, making cool plays. So like it could just be like butt fumbles and pick sixes and things like that. And things like that. It could just be a bunch of stuff that makes this game interesting, but 20-20 tie is where we're going with this one. I get 2 points on a win, too, if they actually do tie. Timmy, you go.
I'll give you the 2 points if you can predict a tie, 100%.
You deserve it.
I think the Cowboys just have the Giants number, man. They've had it for years and years and years. Even when Cooper Rush had to play the Giants a few years ago when Dak had that 4-game absence, they still dominated them pretty easily. So I haven't had any luck this year picking the Giants to win, so I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win. And I think it's going to be a touchdown here. So 27-20. I think the Cowboys are going to give their fans a false sense of hope. They're going to be like, oh, maybe we can win with Cooper Rush. But in reality, they're just playing the Giants, who have nothing to play for.
Okay. Oh, also, if Cooper Rush balls out, the commentary around this of them beating the Commanders and then beating here is going to be, should they just have rolled with Cooper Rush and should Dak be out? But yeah, is Cooper Rush better than Dakota Rain Dakota Prescott? The nightcap, we've got Miami heading to Green Bay. Green Bay is favored by 3.5. I actually expected that line to be a little bit more, to be quite honest with you, with those circumstances of the South team going to the North and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, but Green Bay is favored by 3.5. I'm going to go quickly here. I've got the Green Bay Packers 28-21. I think that they're going to run all over the Dolphins. The Dolphins can play good defensively. They have been playing better, but I think that the Packers are just a more physical team. They're going to show their physicality. Josh Jacobs having a big day, and they're going to get a W.
What you got, Tim?
I don't hate it. I think, like Kyle said, America's going to be on the Packers tomorrow. I think they're the easy favorite. It's easy to pick them. I think the Dolphins' defense has been playing really well lately, and I think we've made this point a few times. The Packers are 7-3? Are they 8-3 now? And they have the record of a great team, but we still haven't seen them play a great game of football. They had a good game last week, but it was really just a game script thing. Like, they got the ball so many times, they were able to capitalize on it. So I think the Dolphins come to play tomorrow. I'm going to pick them to win this one. I think this is the one upset of the weekend. So I got it 26-22. I think it's purely defensive. I think we see a really good game from the Dolphins defense tomorrow.
Love will throw you a couple. You just got to catch them.
Leads the league, still leads the league, correct? Or will the Thrill Levis take that over?
Will the Thrill?
Listen, this is my favorite game of the week. It's super intriguing. The Dolphins have impressed me with how they played. Like Tim said, the Packers, we haven't seen 4 quarters of just great football. Yeah, you did it against a depleted Niners team, right? I'm going to cut to the chase, and then I'll get to explaining after. I, too, am going to pick the Dolphins. This is more hopeful than anything. There's no track record of them winning this game. This is more hopeful because I don't think the Bengals are going to make it. And we were talking about last week how, someone's going to put a threat to the Broncos because that could be a hella boring round 1 game, even though Bo Nix is low-key lighting the shit up right now.
It'd be a quality football game. It's just not what I want.
Yeah, Bengals and Dolphins got real excitement to their teams. And like Tim said, this Dolphins defense, it's improving. It's got some toughness to it that we saw even in week 1 in that Jaguars game. It's just got some toughness to it. It's got a stand to it. They can run the ball, which is needed in these type of games. I said maybe they need to unlock Mozart, but I think they could just do it with HN and Wright. They could be okay. They should be okay. I think this will be a close game regardless. I say we get a classic 30-27 Dolphins. Yeah, if they can turn the ball, like you said, if Jordan Love throws them some and they catch it, that's an advantage right there. You could run the ball, keep the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. That's an advantage. That's really going to be the key. If you can do that, keep your defense off the field too much, you should be okay. Low key, they haven't won, but they've actually played okay in these cold weather games. They didn't get demolished by the Chiefs last year. Famously with Skylar Thompson, they kept up with the Bills in a weird ass game the year before that I think was even colder than the Chiefs game. Again, there's no record for this. If you're betting, you absolutely should bet the Packers because, I mean, warm weather team going against a cold weather team wins every time. I just think the Dolphins are super desperate. They're kind of on a run here. They looked really good against the Pats, though the Pats are kind of a joke of a team right now. I will one day talk about the Pats again, even though I don't think they warrant it. But the Dolphins really are, like, aside from, I think, that Arizona game, Tua's first game back, which was a 50-50 game. And then I think there was a game with Hundley that they lost by one early on too. Like, those really could have determined the season, but they are truly playing for their season now. They probably still could get in technically, even if they lose this game. I know their schedule lightens up a little bit after this game, but if they can win this game, it improves their chances dramatically. So again, hopeful pick, classic, should be the game of the day, 30-27 Dolphins. But we'll see what actually happens. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Black Friday game?
Oh, yeah. We should talk about that. Okay, so that's, I don't know. But do you have the spread for that, Timmy, offhand?
I think that's a big one, too. That's 10.5.
I think it was 12.5. Give me one second. Yeah, it's 12.5.
Casey at home, 12.5. So I actually think that they cover. I think it's a 30-17 Kansas City win. This offense actually has been clicking, especially since DeAndre Hopkins has been there. I think Mahomes is like a 103 rating, 12 touchdowns, 3 picks. I know that was against the Panthers. They did score 30 the last week. They did move the ball decent a bit against the Bills. Mahomes has been playing better football over the last month and a half, and I think that the defense is not going to let the Raiders do a whole lot on them, especially if Aiden Hogan's playing quarterback. So I've got it to be 30-17. I think they do cover barely. I wouldn't bet it because those are it's just too big of a spread to bet. But 30-17 Kansas City.
I'll go quickly here. I think this is going to be a listless, boring game. That's what I expect. I think it's going to be a 24-16 victory for the Chiefs.
Fair.
I said last week on the podcast that if the Panthers beat the Chiefs, I would pick the Raiders to win this football game. They didn't, but I'm still going with the Raiders, baby. I think we get a really weird football game on Friday. So I'm going to take it 19-14. I think it's going to be a boring game, but it's going to be a really weird one. 19-14.
14. Okay. Okay, well, that is about that. We went on the Drake Kendrick kind of conversation went longer than I expected to, too. But I mean, I should have expected it with Kendrick dropping an album like that. But this was the Warner Brothas podcast. We've got Kyle, of course, in person.
Real quick.
Hold on.
Real quick.
Kyle wants something.
I need a top 3 Thanksgiving foods from each of you real quick before we go. I would say top 5, but we're going to go top 3. We have 3 games tomorrow. Actually, we'll go top 4 for the 4 games. Thanksgiving, Black Friday. Top 4.
See, we don't have it, but we've had it like maybe like 1 or 2 years. I enjoy mac and cheese on Thanksgiving, but we don't really ever have it. It's a turkey. I always go for stuffing, mashed potatoes, and I'm a rolls guy. So those would be the 4. I'm a plain guy, but those are the 4 that I go with.
Tim, what you got?
Definitely got to have that stuffing. I could do without the turkey. It's a pretty dry bird, so
that's why we go with the darker style of the meat. Yeah,
Smoke that shit. Smoke
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I've seen some videos on how to cook one, and they look like super good. But in my family, it's always been just a dry bird. So I'll leave out the turkey. I think definitely stuffing, definitely rolls. You got to have some sweet rolls. You got to have something. Mashed potatoes and gravy got to be there. Unpopular opinion: mac and cheese is not a Thanksgiving Day food. I love it on Thanksgiving, but it's not a Thanksgiving Day food, in my opinion. Um, and then cranberry sauce. Love cranberry sauce, man. That's probably the whitest attribute I have. Cranberry sauce is on my plate every single Thanksgiving.
Listen, I love me some cranberry sauce. Actually, that's somehow gonna make my top 4. My thing is, you gotta
Hold on. I get just a random message. Timmy, Danny says cranberry sauce is the real star. Thank you, Timmy, for saying it as I was typing it. So shout out, Danny. Thank you, Danny. We appreciate it. But the real star is cranberry sauce. So, as she is very white herself. So, yes.
Well, listen, cranberry sauce has no race boundaries because I love cranberry sauce. But the thing is, not by itself. Got to mix it with the stuffing, with the turkey, with the cranberry sauce. Matter of fact, if you want to mix it with the mashed potatoes and whatever else you got, I'm cool with that too. I'm a masher when it comes to my food, certain foods, and those 3 specifically. So yeah, turkey, stuffing, cranberry. But I almost can't even count cranberry because I would mix it with the shit. So it's really like 2.5. So I'm cheating here. Give me the sweet potatoes, and then yeah, my mom's mac and cheese. It's the goat mac and cheese. Mm-hmm. We got that there. So that's 5. That's really cheap. That's really 4 because the cranberry is like an accessory to the stuffing and the turkey. If it was by itself, I would eat it, but I don't love it by itself. I love it with stuffing and turkey. So turkey, stuffing, cranberry, sweet potato, mac and cheese. Boom. And mac and cheese is definitely a Thanksgiving food. Fuck off, Tim.
I'm not hating on you for having it. Like, we're actually bringing a mac and cheese to our Thanksgiving. But growing up, not a single year did my mom make mac.
You're bringing mac and cheese. So then what you said before was null and void. Then it is officially a Thanksgiving food if you're bringing it.
I guess I'm declaring it this year a Thanksgiving Day food because I'm bringing it. I guess so.
You get 24 years to figure it out. Okay. Well, now
eat some mac and cheese.
So now that we have that, we got the Thanksgiving foods out there. I hope everyone has themselves a wonderful Thanksgiving. This was the Warner Brothas podcast. We've got me, got my brother Kyle, of course. Great to have him here. We've got Timmy. We've got a great 2 days of football coming up, and then honestly, there's Fridays, there's college football, there's Saturday, there's great college football games on. So if you care, just a great weekend of sports. Like, this is just a phenomenal weekend of a bunch of sports that are going to be going on. So enjoy that. Enjoy family time. Warner Brothas podcast, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that Warner Brothas podcast. But we appreciate all you guys. We'll be seeing you guys very soon.